Good afternoon, everybody. Today I want to talk a little bit about reading and how to handle course readings and to give you some help on dealing with difficult readings. The reason why I wanted to do today's video is because I heard through the grapevine that people are having some trouble with Theaetetus, and I'm not surprised. It's a hard reading, and this isn't an English class. It's true. I don't want to be grading your reading skills, but at the same time, I want to prepare you for what's going to be thrown your way at university. And I certainly remember in my first year at university, I took history, and the history course that I took was the history of intellectual thought in the contemporary West. Basically, we studied a philosopher every class, and I had class twice a week, so we studied 2 philosophers a week for the whole year, and the readings that we were assigned were readings in the original text, so I had to read Aristotle's, not the whole metaphysics, but I had to read excerpts from Aristotle's Metaphysics, and I had to read excerpts from Plato's Republic. I remember reading the allegory of the cave in the original text, and I remember being very much confused by the allegory of the cave. And to give you a little bit more context, I went to university in the late 90s and early 2000s when the internet had just started to become a thing, and it wasn't as easy to get help and resources as it is today. So here's what I realized, I think a little bit too late, is that when you're dealing with a difficult reading, the best way to handle it is to do a little bit of groundwork to start with. And what I mean by that is to find a summary of what the reading's about and to read the summary, or to familiarize yourself with a video summary so that you know what the reading is about, and it gives you a bit of a map so that you don't get lost in it. And I think that that's probably where, if you're having trouble with Theaetetus, it's probably what the problem is that you're getting lost in the language, and then once you get lost, it's hard to do the activity if you don't know what's going on, and I can totally understand that. So what I want to do is I want to show you the way that I wish I would have approached readings back when I was in university. Like, honestly, what I used to do was I used to just lunge head forward, or head first into the reading, try to get through it, walk away with a partial understanding of it, and then go to class, and then the professor would explain things, and that would sort of clarify for me. I wish that I would have realized what I realize now is probably the better way. So we're going to do a little tour over here. What I would do if I were you is I would, before I read Theaetetus, which here it is, right? This is what you're supposed to read. And I mean, it's hard. Like, when we get into the part here where Socrates and Theaetetus are talking to each other, the language is tough. What you're asked to do is pretty challenging. So what I would suggest doing before you even approach this is cheating, basically. It's not really cheating, because what you're going to do is you're working smart instead of working hard. This is a website that you're probably familiar with from a later lesson. Some of the readings on those empiricists, some of them come from another website, but half of them come from this website. And so what I did basically was I Googled Theaetetus summary, and I found this website, and basically what it does is go down to summary. It gives me a summary of what this thing is about. So I take a little bit of time to read the summary, which is, like the equivalent of about a page of text. So it's going to take me between 5 and 10 minutes to read it carefully and to think about it and to understand it. But it's going to give me a roadmap of what the text is about. So if you spend a little bit of time doing a little bit of reading, like it's basic pre-reading strategy, right? If you think back to elementary school and some of the basic reading strategies that you would have been taught that before you read a story, you do a little bit of pre-reading. So you might try to predict what the story is about based on the title. You might go through, if it's a difficult reading and there's words that are in bold, like those vocabulary words, you go and find out what those mean first before you approach the reading. Like there's things that a smart reader does before they actually jump into like the main event. And so I think that maybe that's something that we should do, is, well, something that you should do and think about doing, is investing a little bit of time before you go into a difficult reading, by reading a summary. Like I use the strategy, or I promote the strategy when in my English class, whenever we're studying a work of literature. So for example, we just wrapped up the Hamlet unit today in 4U. Before we even started looking at the Shakespearean text, we went to the video Sparks Notes. And you're probably kind of like having that moment, like, really, the English teacher used Sparks Notes? Of course, Sparks Notes are a resource. That, they're helpful. They're not a replacement for reading a play, but they are a good resource to help get you started. So you invest 10 minutes in watching the video Sparks Notes, and then you walk away with, a basic understanding of what the play is about. You know who the characters are, you know what the setting is, and you know essentially what happens. And yeah, that ruins the ending for you, but I mean, if your goal is to get a high mark on the test and the presentation that go along with it, you don't care that much about, keeping that surprise ending for yourself. You don't mind having that spoiled. And so the same thing is true for Theaetetus. So, instead of like reading it and trying to figure it out on your own from scratch, you spend a little bit of extra time by doing some pre-reading. You get a sense of what it's about, and then it's like you have a better chance of not getting lost in it because you know what's going to happen. So as you're reading this summary, you get a sense of what the text is, like how it's broken up. So it starts with Euclid and a friend are listening to a slave as the slave recounts this conversation that he heard. And then it breaks the conversation up into pieces. It tells you about, what characters involved. So you got Socrates, and he's sort of like outside the court, and he's going to be going in to give testimony and to confront his enemies in it. But meanwhile, he's going to be talking to anybody who will talk with him, because that was Socrates' his custom, I guess you'd say. And so Theaetetus and Theodorus approach him, and Socrates takes the opportunity to challenge Theaetetus on what he actually knows. And then that's kind of broken up into different pieces. And the summary will let you know that. And then as you are reading the actual text, you'll know that, okay, this is the part where Socrates challenges Theaetetus on, the fact that Theaetetus' definition of what knowledge is too broad. Or this is the part where Socrates gives the analogy of being a midwife of sorts. Or this is the part where towards the end, where Socrates is talking about the difference between knowledge and perception. Those sorts of things, it'll show you what's there, and then you can follow your way through it. All right. So now, I think that it's a really important skill for you to, or not a skill, I think it's a really important part of this course that we do tackle a few challenging texts, like some primary texts. So this is a primary source, it's the actual text from Plato, as opposed to like a modernized version where it's made easier, the text is made easier. Because when you're at university, if you're studying philosophy especially, but when you're at university, expect to have difficult texts thrown your way, and you need to have some endurance and some skills to deal with those challenging texts. So my advice for you is this: when with Theaetetus, or with the allegory of the cave, which with the allegory of the cave activity, I thought that I'd sort of like subtly brought these reading skills in. That yeah, I've got the actual text of the allegory of the cave, but I also read a summary of it, and I also watch a video of it, and then with all that together, I should be able to summarize and understand what that's about. Use those skills and practice those skills. So do the pre-reading at the beginning, and then be patient. And of course, I think the main thing is know what your end result is going to be. So really, all I'm looking for you to do with this assignment is to try your best to read it and understand it, and then to show me 3 things that you found interesting about it, right? 3 excerpts that you found them interesting, and to talk about them a little bit. Really, that's all I want you to, not all I want you to get out of it, but that's what I want you to get out of this assignment is I want you to be given a challenging text, and I want you to succeed in reading it and walking away with like a decent basic understanding, knowing that if you were in an actual first year philosophy class, then you would go to class and then the professor would explain it in detail. And that's, you know, that's the downside to e-learning, is we don't have that opportunity where I can give a lecture on theaetetus for you. But anyways, the main important skill to walk away with is you know, or the quality is to not walk away from, or not just to not shy away from the challenging text. All right. So the other thing I want to reiterate is nobody sent me any emails about this, like looking for help. So please email me, like get in touch if you are having trouble with this assignment or any assignment. Like I don't mind answering emails. There are a few people in the class who email me on a daily basis. Right, and they often say, "Oh, I'm sorry to bug you again," but it's not a bother. I like it when students email me. It shows me that they care. It shows me that you know, they want to understand it, and I certainly don't mind taking time out of my day to respond to your email. So please make sure you do that too, and know that I definitely don't mind. All right. Other than that, I just want to remind you that I want you to get into that teamwork activity. That was the end of the day bell. Get into that teamwork activity and join a team, because I need to have some information about your teamwork and collaborative skills in time for the report card. And so jump in there. I've got some interesting questions, and you get to work together a little bit, which hopefully is a refreshing change.